Welcome to Crafty Polyglot, the monthly podcast where language meets creativity. Each month, we sit down with leading voices and innovators in language education, from renowned educators to pioneers shaping the future of multilingual learning. Together, we explore the art, the science, and the passion behind mastering languages, uncovering the strategies and stories that inspire learners and educators around the globe. Whether you're a teacher, a student, or simply a language enthusiast, Crafty Polyglot is your gateway to fresh insights, practical tips, and meaningful conversations that celebrate the vibrant world of languages. Join us on this journey, because in every language, there's a new world to discover.
Welcome to the inaugural Horse Education Podcast. I'm Felicia Eybl, and I will be interviewing Ynez Olshausen, retired principal of Bruns Avenue, Smith Language Academy, and Waddell Language Academy. Welcome, Inez.
Thank you.
Let's begin with some background. Can you share what inspired you to become a dual language immersion educator?
It's the direction my life took after I joined the Department of Defense school system in 1979. And I moved with my daughter to Stuttgart, and she wanted to experiment with going to a German school. She did not speak a word of German, but she was outgoing and confident, and we walked down the hill from our apartment to the neighborhood school and enrolled her. And I don't know that they had any great expectations. It was an experiment for them too. But this was in September, early September, and by Thanksgiving, she was doing her homework in German and had made lots of friends and was chattering away with them in imperfect but increasingly impressive German. And instead of the 2-year contract that I initially signed, I ended up staying in Germany with the Dodds school system for 16 years. I saw how my own daughter blossomed with this second language immersion opportunity. She had friends from the American base where I was working. She had friends at the German school. She went back and forth between languages effortlessly. And I thought to myself, even if we were only to stay for 2 years, look at the opportunity that this has provided her. What a growth opportunity. And I was working with large numbers of American children of U.S. service members and diplomats and other people supporting the U.S. presence in Europe during the Cold War. And I thought, why can't all of these children have this opportunity? Even if they stay in Germany for 2 or 3 years, what a fantastic possibility. So when I became a principal, I was able to actually begin German language immersion offerings for kids in the U.S. Department of Defense schools.
Well, that is great. And then that energy brought you to Charlotte.
Indeed, it did.
To Bruns Avenue Elementary. So can you share a brief history of dual language immersion in Charlotte and in North Carolina?
Well, the German immersion program was the first of the language immersion experiments in Charlotte, initiated by Dr. John Murphy, who was the superintendent in the early 90s. And he had established or at least taken over immersion programs in the D.C. area where he had been superintendent before coming to Charlotte. He thought that as a magnet offering, that this would be an attractive way to do something as a special offering for Charlotte parents, but also to support voluntary integration of the public schools of Charlotte, offering arts programs and other things as a magnet. And so Bruns Avenue was the first German immersion program. I believe began in 1992, and its first couple of years it limped along without a tremendous amount of support from the people in the school or lack of understanding from the school system. And I was recruited while I was still working in Berlin to come to Charlotte to take over this program. So I arrived in July of 1995.
Great. So coming into a new school district from Germany and basically keeping the program running or giving it some momentum, can you tell us how you had to be crafty to create solutions for second language learning?
The entire rest of the story is about being crafty and saying, that's not going to work for us, it was really pretty much uphill for 20 years, I have to honestly say. And of course, you know exactly what I'm saying, because in an enormous school system like this, they have to standardize some expectations. And in a way, that's very fair. But if you are learning to read in a different language, the whole methodology, the pedagogy is completely different. And there has to be some comprehension of the fact that these children who are 5 years old when they enter the program are learning basic skills. They're not just learning German or whatever the language may be. They're learning the same basic skills as the kids in the school down the street, but they're learning the language in which to learn it at the same time. So it's a very layered and complex pedagogy. The measuring sticks and the expectations have to be different. At least they have to understand the complexity of that. So in a system where virtually no one in this enormous school system speaks a second language or has lived abroad and had to navigate a different language environment, it would be almost impossible for them to understand that.
Right.
And being the advocate, the tip of the spear for the program, having the energy, having the momentum to keep it going while it grew until you can get to the results and say, look at these outcomes to justify saying that's not going to work for us. We're different.
Right, right. Absolutely. So what kind of misconceptions or hesitations did you receive from members of the community or from the school district?
The prevalent question is, what's wrong with English? And aren't they going to learn English? As if somehow they were going to lose their mother tongue by learning another language. The idea, I think, in most people's minds was based on whatever their high school language learning experience had been.
Absolutely.
They took French 1, French 2, perhaps in high school, enough to meet the requirements to get into college, and it led to absolutely no proficiency. You can ask any adult who took 2, 3, 4 years of a foreign language in high school, let's have a conversation in that language. Oh, no. It does not lead to being able to speak and interact and navigate. There's no fluency. Whereas a child in a German immersion program, or French or Spanish or Mandarin or Japanese, can hold a conversation pretty much by first grade.
Right.
The level of a 6-year-old, but nonetheless, they can make their needs, wants, and ideas known. So the basic idea of an immersion program being a language learning program is a misconception, because actually it's learning the curriculum in another language, not just learning the language. And of course, if you're in French 1 in 10th grade, you're learning to talk about things you already knew. You can talk about the weather. You can talk about travel. You can talk about the members of your family, the colors of the outdoors. But you've known that since you were in preschool. There's nothing new in terms of content. And of course, in an immersion program, these kids are learning entirely new content and the language simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Very difficult concepts to get across to people who are monolingual.
Absolutely. So why do you believe, other than your own experience with your own children and my experience with my children, why do you believe that learning a second language or multiple languages is so important for children?
I can't emphasize this enough. It's certainly doing what most parents want to do for their children, which is to give them the resources, the skills, the abilities to be competitive in a global environment. Because global is now. Global is not the future. Global is now. But it's also, so, you can sign your child up for ballet lessons, swimming lessons, whatever lessons, but you can't necessarily have them learn a foreign language. So it is a choice that parents sometimes think this is going to be an asset for my child.
Absolutely.
And I think parents entering kindergarten are already thinking about that college application. It's just the competitive environment we're in now. But on the other hand, you're giving a child something that's immeasurable, which is this cognitive flexibility of working between languages that is almost like weightlifting, making your muscles stronger, this working between languages, it has cognitive benefits that are very evident, certainly by the end of elementary school, if not after. And you can actually see that in the math scores.
Right. So what are some suggestions you would give to parents who are considering this? Because we know that parenting a monolingual learner does not look the same as parenting a child who is in a language immersion program. So what ideas would you have for these parents?
Well, the first idea has to do with that topic of great interest to every parent, which is homework. Certainly in the initial years, parents can help their child establish homework habits and can follow the teacher's directions for helping the child to do the homework. That ends pretty quickly. I like to almost joke by telling parents, one thing I can promise you is you won't be doing your child's projects, because it requires the child to actually have and use the language skills to do research or to demonstrate their learning in a way that mom can't help with. That's a little unsettling to parents who think, let's go to Michael's and I'm going to help you make this catapult project or whatever. The parent has to be supportive of the child's calling a friend or emailing the teacher or staying after school for a little bit of help, because the parent as a support system can't intervene and be the one who says, honey, you have to, this isn't right, or let me help you with this. You can really see that parents don't do their children's homework.
Right, absolutely. And when they do, it's generally a disaster. Yes. So what are some easy ways that parents can support language learning and cultural awareness at home?
I think one of the things kids really like to do is to get into an informal environment where they hear the language or could interact with the language. That might be a restaurant. It might be one of the international celebrations that happens all around our community. The university has an international festival. There are a variety of, I think there's an international festival going on the street this weekend. So there are a lot of opportunities to go out to eat and experience Hispanic restaurants or to go to the Japanese restaurant. Kids get very curious about the world in a very informal and natural way. And it actually can be a great exploration for the parents too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So are there any key milestones or turning points in the journey to dual language proficiency that parents should be aware of?
There's one that I wish I had a prop for, but I'll use my hands. It's not a straight line of acquisition. So you think about your child's initial language learning from infancy, how you as a parent talk to this child for a very long time before the child talks back. And that's certainly the beginning of the language acquisition phase. That input, a rich environment, is extremely important. And it almost doesn't matter what language you do that in. Whatever your mother tongue is, providing that rich language input to your young child long before they can speak is super important as a foundation. But then if we jump ahead to kindergarten, you see very, very rapid acquisition. One of the things parents think about is it's going to be almost like when you line them up against the door frame and you have a measuring stick of this is the first day of school in kindergarten, this is the first day of school in first grade, how tall they get, and it's a nice straight line. Some years they grow more than others, but it's pretty much a straight line. But I'm not implying that all of you will know what a martini glass looks like, but if you think about it, it's a V. Filling up the bottom of the martini glass takes less volume than adding to the volume at an upper level. So you'll see the level rise very rapidly in the beginning, but it becomes much more complex. And the language acquisition is different if you are learning advanced mathematics in Japanese. So the acquisition perhaps proceeds at a different pace. And of course, the maturity of the child's brain is changing also. They're talking about very concrete things when they are in kindergarten or first grade. The world is touchable and tangible. whereas it becomes far more abstract, I'd say from third grade on.
So when you consider how students are learning and the success that most students have in the language immersion programs, what do you see that matters most beyond the test scores?
I see this openness and curiosity about the world, that kids are eager to have new experiences that might really be quite scary for children in another setting. One of the things that the immersion programs in Charlotte have done is offer, really beginning in fifth grade, the opportunity to actually have an exchange with a partner in another country, to go and live with that family for 2 weeks, to go to school, to ride public transportation in Stuttgart or wherever your partner school is, to experience their everyday culture at home, eating and getting back and forth to school, perhaps a religious observation. And then that partner comes to your family and you host that partner, often making a lifelong connection.
Absolutely.
Which we also see kids who've been in contact with each other for 25 years and more. Once they've had that experience, they feel, as one parent said, my child thinks the world is her backyard. And that's a direct quote from a parent who was like, letting my child go on this trip. It's hard to see your child take wing and fly off into the world, but there's no going back after that. They're very eager to have these different experiences, and you can just see them grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is, I think one of the best parts of the language immersion program, that students get to experience their language and culture in that place. That makes it so much more interesting and enjoyable for them. So the vision statement at Smith and Waddell was creating bright futures in 6 languages. Can you share a success story of a student or students who used their knowledge of their second language or third language and how it shaped them?
I can think of two great examples from students of the early days of the program. One girl in the German program named Maria went all the way through the 8th grade in the immersion program and then went to Myers Park High School, where I don't know that her German improved very much, but she was an excellent student. She was a German minor at NC State, where she was an engineering major. Today, she is working and living in Munich as a biomedical engineer.
Wow.
Working for a company that is an international German-American. It's a country, global company. So she basically lives in German now. She loves her life in Munich, as one would. She said, if you were wondering if these students use any of their language skills, my daughter, Miriam, is the public affairs officer for the Belgian embassy in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
That's a real wow. So those are two really outstanding examples.
Absolutely.
But I can think of the kids, and I think of them as kids, who got scholarships to programs that are very globally oriented at prestigious universities, where one of their years of study was in Hong Kong. One of their years of study might have been in Singapore. And I have to say, a little bit closer to home, that my daughter moved her family to Charlotte so that my granddaughter could attend the immersion program in Mandarin Chinese. And my granddaughter is this year a senior in Shanghai. So those are some good examples.
Those are great examples. And it's just great to hear the stories about our students, in addition to those students who came back and worked at Waddell and Sale. So that's just wonderful to hear. So over the years, what changes and improvements have you seen in the approach to dual language education and the resources available to support the program?
Well, it's incredibly gratifying to me to see that in the 10 years since my retirement from Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, the notion of offering immersion programs as an option for everyone has become mainstream. And there's a real effort in many districts to make it an option that's not just at one magnet school where you have to travel a great distance to take part in that, but it's an option across a district. And not only in our own urban area, but to make this an option in some of the more rural areas of our state. And there are marvelous organizations. I could name one, Participate Learning, that has supported districts in growing their programs and hiring teachers, bringing excellent teachers in from those countries so that your child has a native speaker model and someone who's already a highly motivated and excellent teacher. I think at the state level and at the district level in many of our districts, there's a recognition that this is preparing kids for the global economy. This is the world we live in. Plus, obviously, there's no market for kids who are bilingual but have poor skills.
Right.
So it's really important to say that these programs not only mean that you are going to acquire real proficiency in the language, but you're going to have excellent skills, sometimes significantly better than the school down the street because of those cognitive benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I would like to thank you, Inez, for joining us for this first podcast from the Crafty Polyglot. And we certainly appreciate all of the knowledge that you have shared with us.
Well, you and I share the same passion.
That's right.
For